A lot of people over the weekend were upset with Charles Radtke's post-fight interview at UFC Vegas 85, insinuating that he should be paid for his interviews. But I actually watched the post-fight presser, and I think people are totally wrong on this, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So let's look at the first thing that sort of sparked all this. And I'm not singling anyone out here, but I do have Amy's tweet. This sort of led to other things after this, and I'll explain this in a second here. But she says, Charles Radtke thinks he should be paid for his post-fight interviews with the media, so we just stopped asking him questions. Bloody Elbow then ran with this and said, Charles Radtke asked to be paid for his UFC post-fight interview, and everyone just stops asking him questions. So you think that he's trying to pull a Paddy Pimblett. Remember this happened with Paddy last year, where he's, basically tried to get Ariel Helwani to pay him to do an interview, and Ariel's like, no, that's not how it works. So I'm thinking, and I saw this as well online, and I thought, oh, great. Like, who's this guy? He's got 2 UFC fights, thinking that he should be paid for interviews. So I'm like, great. Like, I'm very much on the side of, nobody should be paying any money to do any sort of media. You know what I mean? That's where I lie on this. And I can do a video on this later. I've talked about this topic at length on my live streams, but let's actually watch what Charles said, because I think people totally took this completely out of context here. So let's watch what Charles has to say here. So I'm not going to watch the whole thing. It's 2 minutes, but we'll go through kind of the main points of it. So
the TV's off, but my man's off. However minutes it was.
God damn, that's how babies are made. That was great.
So he's talking about his win.
This event tonight, this fight.
Honestly, it was just whatever was available. If he's looking to strike.
So just quick thing on this. So he's basically just, having a regular interview. Like, there's no indication that he's pissed off or annoyed or anything like that. I would assume, just based off that tweet, that he just came up and said, you got to pay me to ask questions. But he answers a few questions here like a normal interview. So again, we're getting things a little bit twisted here, because just based off some of the tweets there, it looks like this guy was very hostile. That's not really the case.
Take him down if he's looking to take me down. Last time that I actually was in a full camp as well. So for me, the Sydney, Australia fight was fantastic. I love what I said. It is what it is. But I wanted to be remembered for my performance. So give me that $50,000. I'm broke.
What happened before
that? Okay. Key thing there. Give me that $50,000. I'm broke. Key thing he says here that we're going to revisit a little bit later.
We didn't have that opportunity, full camps, all that.
Life. Trying to make it.
He's talking about how he didn't have a good camp.
This game doesn't pay the best. But I love it, and I'm deserving of the $50,000, and I won't stop talking about it till I get it.
Sounds like a plan. I'm not mad at that. Was there anything, even in the small amount of time you spent in the cage with Urbina, that surprised you at all, of him, his attack, his feet, or anything that you were like, oh, okay, let me make that adjustment. I can see what you're coming with.
How long did the fight last?
It wasn't long enough.
Exactly. So it's irrelevant. I went in there.
Okay, he's a little hostile here, but honestly, I mean, what surprised you in the 30 seconds? It's not really, let's be honest, it's not a great question. I mean, I'll ask that at a fight it's gone on a little bit longer, but like, how long did the fight last? It was what? How long was the fight? It was, 4 minutes and 47 seconds into round 1. So, not a ton really to take away from that. I guess 4 minutes in, it's not like it was like 30 seconds or whatever, but yeah, it's I understand his frustration on that, but again, he's not answering questions here.
I did what I was supposed to do. I listened to my coaches, and I trusted myself.
Yes, sir. With a knockout like that, people are going to be talking, wanting to see more of you. How soon do we get you back in that cage? Is there anybody that you would, want to match up with?
How much money you got? That's what it is. You guys get these interviews for free. I need to get paid. Let's go.
My man, congrats on the win.
Thank you.
Okay, so he's not hostile here. What he clearly says here is saying, how much money do you have? I need to get paid for these interviews. He's not saying I'm not going to do interviews unless I'm paid. There's a big difference there. He's talking about how he wants to get paid more for fighting. He's directing this at the UFC. They're saying, when do you want to get back in action? He says, how much are you going to pay me? In other words, if the UFC comes to him and says, hey, we're going to give you a good amount of money, can you fight next week? He'd probably be like, sure, because he's been talking throughout this entire interview about wanting to get paid more. He's not saying, you guys are like freeloading off me. I demand to be charged for interviews. There's a big difference. Yeah, did what he say there insinuate that maybe he wants to get paid for his interviews? Perhaps, but it's not like he flat out said, I'm not going to answer any more questions until someone pays me for my interviews. That's not what he said. So this to me was totally taken out of context a little bit. You'll see here the media does not ask any more questions. People were like, oh, I guess they felt that like he was only asking to get paid for his interviews. No one even bothered to try. Now, a couple of things I got to mention about the media setup here, because I think people get confused about this. So Charles Radtke was on what fight was this? This wasn't even on the main card, or it wasn't the main card. Open up the main card. So when it comes to fight nights, like how much media are you getting here at the fight nights? You're probably getting 5-6 media members. This is not like a pay-per-view. I know because I've done the fight nights, I've done the pay-per-views. There's a big difference in media gathering and all that. You'll notice that Fansided was one of the few that got this interview. But if you look at like MMA Fighting, Mac Life, they don't get these interviews anymore because it's just not going to view well and it's actually going to hurt their YouTube channel. What I'm getting at is there's maybe 6 media members there. So this idea that like there was a bunch of media that didn't want to ask questions, that's just not true because there just wasn't that much media at the actual event. That's one thing to kind of consider here is that, you know, there were, you know, not many people there asking questions. There's probably a lot of people who don't know that much about Charles Radtke, if I'm being honest here. I mean, if I was there, there's, you know, I'm sure I could come up with a couple questions to get in there, but typically when you get these prelim fighters or these fighters that aren't as popular, the media tends not to ask as many questions as say, I mean, I know this is kind of obvious, but like as say like a main event fighter. So that's part of the reason no one asked questions. I don't necessarily think it was because reporters were like afraid to ask. I think it was a lack of media at the event. I think there wasn't much to say. You got a first round finish. What else are you gonna ask, right? Like I just think like there just wasn't that much media there. Like they made it out like the media was scared to ask a question. It's not like he said I'm refusing to answer anything else. He could have just got up and walked, but he doesn't do that. Watch this awkward silence here.
Up next is...
He just says up next is. So he's telling the media, ask me another question. He's not saying I have to get paid. If he wanted to get paid, he would flat out say, okay, I'm only going to ask a question now if someone gives me some money. He didn't say any of that. He made the little comment there more as like an overall statement of how he wants to get paid more. But so many people ran with this. And even I'll admit on my live stream, I was like, oh man, who's Charles Radtke to say this? But when I actually watched the post-fight interview here, that's not what he's saying at all. And this is again, an example of how people are blowing things up on social media and taking things out of context. And as far as I'm concerned, he has not come out and said that I will only do interviews if I get paid. That's not what he's saying here. Again, he just says here up next, implying someone else asks a question and no one does, and it's an awkward silence. And then here's something else that annoys me in this post-fight thing as well. You'll watch this here.
Good. I'm out.
Clapping. Why are you clapping? Whoever clapped in that media thing should get their credentials taken away. You're not supposed to cheer on fighters. Like that's like journalism 101. You're like I can understand if like there was some crazy moment where like someone's getting emotional or something like that, and maybe you're having some empathy there, but you're clapping for a guy that, you know, basically was, you know, just very, very short with the media. Like, I don't even understand that. Like, why are you clapping? That's another issue I have. But anyways, the overall theme of this thing is you can clearly see here that he's not asking to get paid. Paddy Pimblett asked to get paid. You can see the text messages between his management and Ariel. That's a different story where he flat out says, can't BT Sport get the budget to do the interview. That's what they said to him in the text message. He's not saying any of this. He's frustrated that he's not getting paid. I don't know why he's not making enough money. I don't know his story outside the cage. I don't know any of that. But people, you know, a lot of people right now are painting him as this guy that's like greedy and wants to get paid for his interviews. And that's not really what happened here. So as someone who works in the media, as someone who's part of the media, I wanted to set the record straight because I'm watching this and I'm not thinking he's coming out here and saying that I have to get paid for interviews. So that's kind of the point of this video. I think people took this way out of proportion, blew it up. And, you know, I don't necessarily think the media necessarily did this for clickbait, but I also think people didn't bother fact checking either, because if you read these two tweets here, and again, I'm not singling out either of these two, there's a lot of people who said this as well. Charles Radtke thinks he should get paid for his post-fight interviews with the media, so we just stopped asking him questions. I think part of that was that, I mean, she's speaking for all the media saying that we just stopped asking questions. Maybe if I was there, I probably would still ask a question. I would honestly, if I was there doing that press conference, I would say, hey, can I ask another question? Or are you going to charge me like as a joke to clarify that? And he probably would have answered my question. But like, you're just assuming that that's what he said. And again, I don't think that's the case here. And again, everyone just kind of ran with it. When I saw this tweet, I thought, okay, here's another Paddy Pimblett, but that's not what happened here. So I don't know what you guys think in the comment section below. I know there's going to be people saying, oh, he clearly said he wanted to get paid. No, he didn't. Why would he say up next after there? Up next to me means ask me another question. Where did he get up and like, that's the other thing. He could have just got up and done the interview and said, look, I need to get paid for my interviews. And until I do, I'm out of here. And he could have dropped the mic and left. Then we've got a case, but that's not what he did. He sat there till the very end and then he left. So let me know what you think in the comments. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram @LynchOnSports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you next time.